Hello, and welcome to the Kathleen Spracklin podcast. I am a woman on a mission to help you get the Zettelkasten of your dreams on your work table beside you. Well, this is an episode in a series called Writing from Your Zettelkasten, and it's a little bit sporadic because as I'm writing my new book, Unlocking the Treasure, a Zettelkasten Beyond Your Wildest Dreams, and while I'm preparing my course of the same name, I'm having opportunities to share with you moments that cannot be repeated. There are moments in the process that especially illustrate something about writing from your Zettelkasten. And so when that happens, I use the opportunity to capture it, and then I do an episode in the series. And then it will be however long it is until I have one of those magic moments again that I really need to share with you. So at this point in time, I am working on chapter 5 in my book. It covers the process of placing a card in your Zettelkasten, and it will ultimately ease on into using your index and why you want an index and how associations form in your Zettelkasten. The way I'm structuring the book is that after an introduction, then there's a whole unit that takes it out of the physical, totally into the thought processes of creating a Zettelkasten, and explains it from a conceptual basis where it covers and crosses all of these elements of your Zettelkasten. You see, there's a challenge in trying to teach the Zettelkasten. If everyone tends to think that a Zettelkasten is made up of cards. You see these boxes over here and you say, that's a Zettelkasten. And I even refer to it as my Zettelkasten. It has a name, I call it Zeke. And so it's easy to say, that's my Zettelkasten. Likewise, you can say that a card like this is a part of your Zettelkasten. Well, the reality is that a Zettelkasten is a way of thinking. It's a process. The process touches the physical objects of your Zettelkasten, and the process often leaves behind physical objects, either fresh cards or new entries on existing cards. But the mental process is the Zettelkasten, and the value of the Zettelkasten is in the mental processes that it supports, and in some cases that it even makes possible. So that's where I'm trying to go in my book, in terms of beginning by explaining the mental processes that leave behind these physical objects before I get into box by box, card type by card type, here's how you do it. So I want to have people understand why you want it, how you do it, and how all these pieces interrelate before we get down to writing things on cards. So I happen to be at a spot there where I'm talking about placing a card and where I will be getting into talking about indexes and how you might want to have them. And so what I'm finding that I'm doing is taking one of those sections that I broke apart in an earlier video and subdividing them into the various topics that I want to discuss in this chapter. Then after I've written this chapter that's in the overview area, all those cards will go back together again. I'm not going to file them back in Zeke. I'm going to put them back in the section on the index, because when I get to the second part of the book, where I'm talking about the mechanics of it, well, how do you do this? What does it look like? How do you prepare the card? What do you write on the card? All of those things. Then I'll take the same group back out again, but I'll be emphasizing different aspects of it. Some of the things that I pass over in this one will be the stars in the second group. So I just wanted to capture that moment and show you how the Zettelkasten supports writing and how in many respects it can almost write certain whole paragraphs for you. So come on over to the down-facing camera and I'll show you what I mean. I'm in the process of writing a book, Unlocking the Treasure, a Zettelkasten Beyond Your Wildest Dreams. The theme as a whole is indexing, why you would want to have an index, how the card chooses its parents, what are the mechanics of indexing, how an index can help create a web of understanding, how structure arises in your Zettelkasten. Although these are actually misplaced, there's another section on structure, but I found them in this one, so I've identified them for moving. An aha moment to share as an example, and the realization that I had a podcast that I wanted to present and the information that I want to cover in today's podcast. It's all here on my work table. But the aha moment in particular, not this one, that I got this morning that I wanted to share with you is the concept of how the taglines on your Zettelkasten cards practically write your book. Your output that you're creating will practically transcribe itself. The aha moment that I want to share with you in this podcast is a realization of an enormous power that comes out of the taglines when it's time to start writing your book. Those clumps that you're forming form effortlessly for the cards that have taglines. For my older cards that don't have taglines, I have to read the entire card to see where it goes. That's one advantage, but there's a bigger advantage that I want to share, and for that I'm going to have to get to be a little bit more specific. The insight that I had this morning was that the conversations in your Zettelkasten structure your output. Your output begins by assembling the conversations that you have in your Zettelkasten. The whole structure of the book, article, or podcast comes from the conversations that you assemble. And this reality now leverages the value of the tagline. It provides unity to the cards in any direction in which you wish to assemble them. I think this set of cards, gathered under the concept of explaining why you want an index, does a great job of showing you just how powerful these taglines can become. A Zettelkasten is a learning tool. Our brains are connection-forming machines. Don't begrudge the time to install a card. A complete thought index is installed in the brain. Right here, you've got a nice introductory paragraph for why someone would want to keep a Zettelkasten. Now there's a little bit of a gap here with our brains are connection-forming machines. I have some interesting information on that I want to present, but it's on a card that doesn't have a tagline. So this one I'm going to have to read back through and reassemble the information that I want to say and construct my sentence. Whereas this, I can just practically use the taglines themselves as a paragraph. Look also at the power of a directory card. A Zettelkasten is a learning tool, and here are all these other cards that I might want to pull in that also could contribute to the conversation. I have a conversation here that I'm making. Will any of these elaborate for a further paragraph, or will they add another sentence that I want to add to my existing paragraph? As I go through the stacks of cards that I showed you in the original panorama, I'm finding this is happening again and again in my clumps of cards. The book is practically writing itself from the Zettelkasten. Now I want to share something else that's just kind of a icing on the cake, if you will. I've separated all my cards by the major theme, but my book is discussing the ideas of a Zettelkasten in two passes. The reason is, it's very easy to teach in a structured way. First, you teach the main card, you teach the bib card, you teach the index, everything in its own vertical structure. That's easy to teach, but it doesn't tell you anything about how a Zettelkasten works, because in the reality, a Zettelkasten cuts across all of its components in the process of doing a Zettelkasten. So after the introduction to my book, the whole first unit is on the conceptual functioning of a Zettelkasten. I stay away from the specifics. I stay away from example cards. I talk about the processes that a Zettelkasten implements, because basically a Zettelkasten is a thinking process that leaves behind a set of physical cards. So what I find I can do with this section, and I found it to be true of the section of two previous chapters in the book, is that I can take this stack of cards from all these different areas and I can resort them again based on the message that I'm trying to convey there, which will be, how do you actually bring this about? Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that glimpse into the actual writing process, how it comes about, and how the cards in your Zettelkasten can help you do creative output from your Zettelkasten. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.